I recognize the Democrat whip.
Mr. President, it was October 11th, 2002, 24 years ago. There was a vote on this Senate floor. I was here. The vote was an important one in the history of this country, and maybe one of the most important votes I ever cast as a member of the Senate. What was the question? The question before the Senate: will we go to war? Are we ready to invade Iraq? President George W. Bush had told us that we needed to do it because Iraq had weapons of mass destruction which could obliterate our allies and friends and eventually threaten the United States. The vote took place about midnight. The floor was full because of the importance of the vote. I remember it well. 23 of us voted no. 1 Republican, Lincoln Chafee of Rhode Island, and 22 Democrats. 3 of us who voted no that night are still here, 24 years later. We invaded Iraq. What did we find? No weapons of mass destruction. None. They searched long and hard because the intelligence agencies had told us they were there and a threat to the United States. We stayed in Iraq for year after year after year afterwards. 4,500 American lives were lost in that war in Iraq. I remember going to visit Walter Reed Hospital, meeting the veterans who came back from Iraq. Most of them had lost a limb because of IEDs. There were terrible stories of what they had endured, and some of them had scars from that war that they would never, ever live down. There were many heroes, too, among our military. They did their duty. Their commander-in-chief said, we're going to invade Iraq, and they did. One of those was my colleague in the United States Senate today, Tammy Duckworth, who was a member of the Illinois National Guard, was a helicopter pilot, shot down over Iraq, and suffered serious wounds and injuries as a result. I don't take anything away from the soldiers, the airmen, the sailors, those in the Coast Guard who did their duty. But the reason we had a vote was because we said the American people have to decide whether their sons and daughters will fight this war. This isn't an idea that just comes to us new. This idea is written right here in a little book called The Constitution of the United States. Article 1, the powers of Congress. Section 8, the power to declare war is given to Congress. Now, the senator who just spoke from Wyoming is a friend of mine, but I disagree with what he said. I do believe the American people have a constitutional right to make the decision as to whether their children will be called on to fight a war. That's not too much to ask. We're now engaged in a war, which by definition changes by the day. There have been at least 7 different explanations by this White House as to why we're fighting this war. Yesterday, the President of the United States, in the chaotic manner which has become so typical of him, at one time said it's going to be a very short war in duration, and then later in the day said we'll make it a longer war, we'll fight to the finish. We don't know where he is on this or so many things. He's an impulsive commander-in-chief. I can't think of a worse combination. That is the reality. So when senators come to the floor and want to have an open debate about the war in Iran, which we're currently engaged in, I'll vote yes every time. I believe the American people have an obligation to step up and make the decision publicly as to whether or not this is going to fight a war that's going to last for a long period of time. The way they do it is through senators and members of the House. To say that any president can take us to war at any time is foolhardy. We learned that in Iraq. We shouldn't have to learn it again in Iran.